How's it going, gents? Today on Standing the Door 1944, we're going to be talking about the jacket that Dick Winters really wore on D-Day and how it differed from the jacket seen in the Band of Brothers miniseries. Let's get into it. Before we get started, I wanted to thank the sponsors of today's video, World of Tanks. World of Tanks is a free-to-play PC game that seeks to give players a taste of armored combat, with new content for the game coming available every month. Join a community of over 100 million players and have access to over 800 different tanks from militaries around the world. This highly detailed game features 40 different battle areas that range from wide open landscapes to close quarters urban battlefields that test your tactical abilities to adapt to different combat environments. Featuring highly detailed and authentic tank models, this gives players the ability to see the evolution of tanks over the last 100 years of mechanized warfare. You can download your copy of World of Tanks in the description below, and if you use the coupon code COMBAT, you can get 250,000 credits, 7 days premium access, the premium Cromwell B tank, as well as 3 rental tanks for 10 battles each. If you're a returning player who hasn't played for more than 30 days, you can also use the same coupon code to get 3 days of premium access, the 2-dimensional bargain camouflage, and a free 7-day rental of the British Premium Centurion Mark V tank. Be sure and take advantage of this special offer before it is too late. Thanks again to World of Tanks. Now let's get back to the video. So Dick Winters is arguably one of the most famous and recognizable veterans from the Second World War. His military prowess as a combat leader was immortalized in the 2001 HBO miniseries Band of Brothers. However, based on original photographic evidence, we can see that the uniform worn by Winters on D-Day differs from that which the actor Damien Lewis wore in his portrayal of Winters in the series. So in episode 2 and 3, we see that Winters' uniform is a pretty standard reinforced M42 jumpsuit. Basically, it's not too dissimilar from the one that we have displayed here. And in short, it's the exact same uniform that at least 95% of paratroopers of the 101st Airborne would have jumped into Normandy with. The other 5% of troopers would have also been using the M42 jumpsuit, but they would have been wearing the unreinforced version. But that's a topic for another video. However, if we look at this original photograph taken of Winters in the days just prior to the Normandy invasion, we can see something rather unique about his M42 jacket. He has extra pockets sewn onto the sleeve of his uniform. Now, this feature is commonly referred to as 506 pockets, and basically what troopers would do is they would take an extra set of M42s. All troopers had at least 2 sets, in some cases they had a few more, and more often than not they would be cutting off the chest pockets because they were slightly smaller than the waist pockets, and they would be more conducive to actually sewing onto the sleeves of a uniform. The reason that they would make this modification is because when a paratrooper was actually wearing his T5 parachute, it was very difficult, if not impossible, to access the pockets of his uniform. Additionally, the tight parachute harness had a tendency of crushing the precious items that were kept in those pockets, such as cigarettes. The reason this modification is referred to as 506 pockets is because we see these extra jacket pockets almost exclusively on troopers from the 506 Parachute Infantry Regiment. I say almost exclusively because there is only one photograph, and actually it's a bit of original footage, that I know of that shows a paratrooper from a different regiment wearing his uniform with these extra pockets sewn on the sleeves. So as you can see in this original footage, we see troopers of the 2nd Battalion of the 502nd walking out to their planes just before D-Day, and this one trooper has sewn an extra pocket on the left sleeve of his jacket. Forrest Guth, the armor for Easy Company 506, claimed to be the trooper who actually originated this practice. Guth said that he had cut 3 pockets off of an extra M42 jacket and sewed them on the upper left sleeve as well as on the back tails of his jacket for D-Day. Rather than sewing the 4th pocket onto his right sleeve, Guth actually took an M1 Grand bandolier, cut it in half, and used these 3 pockets specifically for carrying cigarettes as well as for tobacco for his pipe. Another interesting fact regarding the costumes for the series is that they actually replicated Guth's jacket exactly, but before filming, Guth's character was actually cut from the script, and they ended up giving his uniform to the character of Albert Blythe. The story goes that after troopers of the 506 saw Guth's jacket, they began to replicate the practice, and although it is difficult to substantiate Guth's claim that he was the first trooper to do it, I do think that there is evidence to support it, namely the fact that there are more members of Easy Company utilizing these extra pockets than any other company in the regiment. However, the practice can be seen sporadically throughout the 506th. namely by Lieutenant McDowell of Fox Company, PFC Plata of the 506 Demolitions Platoon, and Lieutenant Bobuck of 3rd Battalion Headquarters. It is interesting to note that Lieutenant Bobuck did not sew the pockets on his sleeves, but he did sew the pockets on the back of the tails of his jacket, the same way that Guth did. Dick Winters was obviously one of the troopers to make such a modification to his uniform after seeing Guth's jacket. We can prove that Winters made this modification not only by the original photograph of Winters taken just before D-Day, but also in the fact that Winters' original Normandy jacket is still in existence and can be seen on display in the Pennsylvania Gettysburg Museum of History. As we can see, Winters' jacket, which is clearly identified by his name, sports a pocket on either one of his sleeves. Of note, Winters only added the extra pockets to his sleeves. He did not sew the 2 extra pockets on the back of his jacket the way that Guth did. So the question is, why did the producers of the series decide to not feature this detail in the costume worn by Damien Lewis? One reason could be that the costume designer simply didn't know about this particular detail. However, given the fact that this original picture featuring the jacket was published in Stephen Ambrose's original book, and since that book was readily available to everyone involved in the production, I find it hard to believe that this particular detail was overlooked. In addition to the photograph, the original jacket was still in Winters' possession at the time of pre-production of the series, and it is very likely that pictures were taken of that jacket and actually given to the production. A second and more logical explanation is that this factual error was actually done intentionally. Often in film and television, we see productions that go out of their way to give characters special costumes and other props to help audiences recognize them at any given shot in the film. Look at the M41 field jacket worn by Tom Hanks in Saving Private Ryan. It is a slightly lighter shade of OD3 than all the other costumes, so even from a distance, viewers can see the main character instantly. In other cases, characters are actually given unique costumes and props to help further define certain aspects of their character. In Band of Brothers, the series went to great lengths to portray Winters as a very straight-laced and conservative officer, which is 100% factual. Winters never drank or smoked, and more often than not would be found staying close to the small English village of Albourne, where his unit was stationed, rather than pursuing the active nightlife in London. The dialogue throughout the series constantly refers to how Winters doesn't drink, and then Winters' character also hardly uses any foul language in the show as well. But the producers may have wanted to reinforce the straight-laced persona of Winters' character visually with a jumpsuit that was in its more traditional, unaltered state. What do you think? Should movies and TV shows change little historical details like this for the sake of the story, or should they try and make things as historically accurate as possible? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed today's content, be sure and like and subscribe, and don't forget to check out the sponsor of today's video, World of Tanks. Have a great day, and be sure and live free, because your freedom was bought at a price.